Welcome back everybody to another video with Tabletop Life. We are back. We've got brand new equipment. Brad's got a brand new studio. I've got a new camera to record some content. So we're going to be filming tons of stuff over the next year, especially with the new chapter proof just dropping. With this new camera I'm going to be filming content in Spain and the UK because I'm going to be going to a bunch of tournaments over the next 6 months over there. So it's going to be super exciting. But before that, we have the LVO 2022 coming up in 3 days. Today's Wednesday. I fly down to Vegas in about 5 hours, and the tournament starts on Friday. It's gonna be 6 rounds, 3 on Friday, 3 on Saturday. If you go undefeated over those 6 rounds, then you will play a shadow round on Saturday night, and then after those 7 rounds, then you go into single eliminations for the championship. It is gonna be super exciting. It's gonna be a huge tournament. So we thought we were gonna do some list reviews of what we are bringing. Thomas is doing a review for his list. Damien is also coming, and I'm about to review my list. So I'll go through my units, why they're there, their strengths and weaknesses, and then what I'm expecting from LVO and what my matchups look like. Because with G-Star Code and Custodes just dropping, the meta is very diverse. There's a lot of armies who are contending for top place at LVO. So it's gonna be a rough field, but we're super excited. It's been a while since we've been able to go to LVO just because of COVID. So we're all very excited. So let's jump right into the list. Alright, so let's go through what I'm bringing to LVO. I'm obviously bringing my Space Wolves, my successor chapter with Born Heroes and Whirlwind of Rage. Because if I roll 6s, it's all great. If I don't, then I'm gonna have a rough time. But the list looks slightly similar to what I've always run. I've got my Chapter Master with Hunter, so he can advance and charge, and once he makes a charge, he'll trigger my movement boost. I've got my Lieutenant and my Chaplain for my rerolls and my buffs. I've got a Intercessor squad, a 10-man Intercessor squad now, just so I can do a little bit of horde clearing. I've got my Company Veterans, my Scouts are still there, MVPs playing the mission. I've got my trusty Wolf Guard, 1 7-man, 2 5-mans with the usual loadouts. My 3 Cyberwolves, my little puppies, scoring me tons of oath points and being obnoxiously hard to kill. And my Longfangs for a little punch, and then my transports to deliver all my units wherever I need them on the board. So, I've done a bunch of hobby over Christmas. I've rebased my entire list, and I painted up my intercessors, so I'm super happy with what it looks like. I 3D printed a bunch of bases and some plants just to give the bases a little flair and then add some color. So inspired by Avatar, the Pandora planet. And I've got a cool display board. I don't have any photos in here for this display board, so come check it out, LVO. Come say hi. If you see us walking around, we always want to chat to you guys. But here are the units. So my characters, as usual, my Chapter Master is the little assassin that he is, running around with his Frostclaw. He gives me late game boost speed because... speed boost, because once he makes a charge, he gives an aura of advance and charge, so now my units are a lot faster, especially for the late game when I'm running out of units to get to those objectives. But if there's an exposed character, he has no problem jumping over 15-16 inches because he gets +1 to advance from his World Trade Hunter, and he'll go kill a character that's not protected. I've got the Lieutenant with the Armor of Rust just for some fight last and some defensive protection, and then the Chaplain, who now has the +1 a wound litany for a unit when they're shooting the closest visible target, just so my intercessors can do even more damage against those high toughness monsters running around. And then he gives rerolls, and a little typo there, and he gives +2 to charge with this other litany. My troops, here are my intercessors. I'm running that 10-man just because they have 30 shots +2 grenade launchers. So there's a stratagem that lets them shoot twice, so they can pump out 60 shots at strength 4, AP 1 if they're in the tactical doctrine. With Chapter Master rerolls, reroll ones to hit to wound, and then the Chaplain giving them +1 a wound. They can put some damage at range, which lets me play in more phases than I'm normally used to. So I'm just trying to spread out my damage so I can soften up targets, and then my Wolf Guard can go and clear up. They're also very good at like killing OBSEC units on objectives, so I can dedicate all my attacks into tougher units. I've got my Incursors for forward deploying and screening, and I've got my Assault Incessors as a backfield. They still hit pretty hard, and they have access to fight twice if I need them to, but I normally don't have CP for that kind of stuff. These Intercessors are a really big CP sink because it's more than a 5-man unit. So it's 2 CP to Transhuman, 2 CP to shoot twice, 1 CP for Keen Senses if I want to ignore modifiers when they're shooting to really buff up their damage. So they're big CP sink, but like I don't always have to do it. So just having that option is very, very nice. Elites, we have the scouts with their meltas just to rod and sometimes snipe a character with the meltas, or do that extra damage against flyers, admech flyers, or vehicles. Oopsie daisy. Wolfguard, they've been there since day one with their claws and shields. The sergeant has their thunderhammer, just so if he's the only one alive with those thunderhammer attacks, if he rolls like 2 6s, that turns into like 8 hits, and it gets really, really ridiculous of him being able to do some damage on his own. So it means that one unit is always a threat. Fast attack, we have the Cyber Wolves, just because they're 15 points a model, they can advance and charge, but more importantly, they're 10-inch move, so they can always go score me Oath. They're easy to hide, annoying to kill, because they're T4, 2 wounds, 4 up save, so like bolters struggle to kill them. You have to fire like an autocannon or a lance out to them, and like if you roll a 1 and you have to CP reroll just to kill a dog, it's very annoying. But they're great just for screening and move blocking as well. They're great. I always try and put them in my list. I'm always sad when I don't have them. And then the heavy support, we have the 6-man Devastator squad. There are 4 multi-meltas, 1 grav cannon, and a sergeant with a cherub. So they're here because they go in the drop pod and they come down, and with keen senses, they all hit on 3s and then one of them will hit on 2s. The cherub lets me shoot one of the guns again. So these guys do a lot of damage if they go off. Obviously invons, they can bounce off, but the threat normally keeps my opponents back. And they're always considering when the drop pod's going to come down. They put extra time, so at a tournament level, the drop pod, even though it's a bit of a waste of points, the threat always pays off. And then the transports, we've got the speeders for the scouts, because they're open top vehicles, so the scouts can shoot from inside the speeder if I need them to, or they can disembark after the speeder moves. So with an 18-inch move, 3-inch disembark, and a 6-inch move, that's a 27-inch range where I can deploy the speeder behind terrain and then go and do Oath very safely. This means I'm normally scoring 12 points on Oath every game. And into tougher matchups where the missions are rougher for me, being able to score those 12 points is a huge help, and my opponent can't really stop it. And then obviously we have the drop pod for the Devastators. So that's all the units in the list. So let's go over some of the strengths of the list and then some of the weaknesses. So the strengths. The list, as I said, is very, very good at mission play between the Cyber Wolves for Oath, especially if I go second. If I go second, those Cyber Wolves are normally scoring me auto 15 on Oath. And then the Scouts are scoring me 12 points on Rod. And then I can either take Stranglehold or Engage or the mission secondary. So I'm very confident in my secondaries, and primary wise, I've got a lot of OBSEC, especially with Lieutenant giving Rights of War. And late game, when I've got like a couple models running around, I can contest a lot of objectives. And I've got quite a lot of speed once that Chapter Master triggers Hunter. So, very good at mission play if I don't get tabled. And then the list has a little bit of everything. So the Intercessors are pumping out 60 shots plus 4 grenades. The Scouts have meltas and shotguns that can advance and shoot because they're assault. I've got tons of combat. And then I've got a bunch of multi-meltas in the Devastators. So I've got a little bit of everything. I don't have tons of anything, but it's a little bit of a jack of all trades. And then every unit can hurt in combat. And I'm hoping it's well-rounded enough to deal with anything, but not too well-rounded to when I play like a skewed list like Crusher Stampede, I won't struggle too much. And then with all the speed and the damage output, like any mistakes that you make either in positioning or target priority or when you charge, and I can heroic and make you fight last, get extra movement, it's extremely punishing. So I'm hoping that the fact that we have to play, if you want to win the championship, you have to win 10 games in a row. So I'm hoping that fatigue will get to my opponents a little more than to me, and I'll be able to punish their mistakes. Now, the list does have weaknesses. The weaknesses are more around the durability of the list. Everything is a T4 2 wound model. Scouts are 1 wound and the vehicles are very easy to kill. So my list relies on being able to hide and having storm shields on a lot of my units. If I don't roll my 4-up invons, I'm in a lot of trouble, because these units fall apart fast and their damage output is crazy when I have volume. When I lose like 3 or 4 wolf guard per unit, I've got 1 guy left. If I'm not rolling those 6s, they're not doing damage. And then the other thing is, to get those 6s, I need rerolls. So if Custodians can shut off my rerolls, that's a problem. And if my characters are dead and I can't reroll, I can't fish for those 6s, and I'm just relying on natural 6s, which is, I'm not very good at rolling natural 6s. So if I want my damage to go crazy, I need my rerolls. And then everything is at 24-inch threat range. By that I mean anything within 24 inches I can charge. Normally with a +2 it means that at worst I have a 9-inch charge, because everything within 12 is an 11-inch charge, +2 that's a 9. However, 9 is not very reliable. I'm not normally going for 9-inch charges, because that normally leaves me very exposed. So I have to be very careful with positioning if I want to threaten my opponent's objectives. My intercessors shoot 24 inches. Now they have a 6-inch move and can advance and shoot, so that's not too bad. But my Devastator's at 24-inch range, and all my Meltas at 12-inch range. So very short range. Now with player place terrain, I might be able to influence where my opponent has to go to score objectives and engage me. So with proper terrain placement and proper movement and placing of my units, I should be able to keep my threat ranges significant. You know, like they'll influence the game. So, LVO expectations. There's 1,000 players going. There's tons of armies being represented all across the board. Nothing ridiculous where like there's only one faction being the majority. So, in terms of what the field is going to look like, there's a little bit of everything. And most armies can run a couple of builds now. So I haven't tailored my list for anything. Now, unfortunately, because Gene Steel Cold and Custodians dropped so close to the cutoff, I didn't practice those matchups, so my list don't have the tools that I would have wanted to have in my list. I'll make a video in the future of what I think I'll need in my list to play against Gene Steel Cold and Custodians, and especially with the new missions. But as of now, my list is tailored to the old meta. Now, I still think I can handle those armies. It's just a little more difficult. But in terms of LVO expectations and my matchups, this is what I'm thinking. So Marines, I'm very confident into Marines. I've got a lot of practice. Most Marines, I've generalized them. So like Death Watch, I've got no practice. And Black Templars, I've got no practice. But all the other armies I'm very comfortable with. The only ones that give me a little bit of trouble are White Scars, because they have a better threat range than I do. But I think I'm going to be okay into Marines. Tau, likewise, they don't have the new guns just yet, so it's still the old Tau. My list plays the mission a lot better than they do. They will table me. I've always been tabled by Tau by turn 4, but I normally score enough points to secure the win. Demons, if they don't have firepower, they're a pure combat horde army with a 5-up invuln, and I've got the profiles to go through that. So anything that's like Bloodletter and Horrors and that kind of spam, I can deal with. Once they go the engine route, it gets a little more complicated, but I've got a lot of Meltas, so I'm confident in that matchup. Necrons, I'm a little less confident just because of I haven't practiced against them. One of my good friends here is giving me a lot of games, and he's whooped my butt the last couple games that we played. So I'm a little cautious about the Necrons, but I still think I've got the matchup advantage. So, yeah. And then Sisters, Harlequins, Thick City, and Nid Horde. So Sisters, they got tuned down a little bit. I'm comfortable into the matchup just because I played it a lot. And then Harlequins, likewise, they have a lot of tricks, so they can catch you off guard. That's why I'm not super confident about them. But I've got all the profiles that I need to deal with them, especially because just the volume of firepower from the Intercessors means I should be able to put a lot of damage into them. Thick City-wise, I've got all the Meltas, I've got all the shots, I've got all the damage in combat. I just have to be careful of how I engage them. I want to spread them out a little bit and then do a really big alpha explosive turn to cripple them, and then hope their counter punch is not hard enough for me to be able to do it at a second turn. So I'm looking to engage Thick City around turn 3. When my buffs are up and there's a knot, do a big turn 3, then they hit me back. Turn 4, I hit them again before they get their full invulns, and then I start to like drop in damage output. And then Nid's Horde, Hiveguard are a huge problem for me because I can't transhuman my Wolf card. But if they put a lot of points into Horde and mission play, my Intercessors are there. Is if I go first in this matchup where I can rush up with all my units, advance everything up, shoot my intercessors twice, kill 50 bodies, push up my speeders and my wolf guard. They've got 1 turn to react, and then I can charge in and tag their hive guard. That is best case scenario. If I go second, it's extremely difficult to play against Nids. But I'm hoping that I get a little lucky. Then next up are the matchups that I'm 50-50 on. I don't feel comfortable into them just because I haven't played them enough and I don't know what to expect. Orcs, if they're playing the full combat list, I'm comfortable, I think, because they can't charge me turn 1 reliably if I deploy sensibly. And then I have that burst turn of the intercessors, the devastators, the meltas, and going into combat to where I can put a lot of damage in. But if they're running vehicle spam and flyers and artillery, again, if I can't reach that artillery quick enough, I'm in a lot of trouble. Crusher Stampede, again, it's very few models normally with the Hive Guard in the back, so I feel like I've got a list that can play the mission better, but they are really, really difficult to kill, and they do a lot of damage when they come in, and fighting on death means I have to be careful how I charge them. So I'm hoping that I can just outplay them as I get tabled. Old school Drukhari, I've got a lot of experience against them, but they're such a hard army to play against because they're very good at mission play. So here I have to read how my opponent is playing and outplay my opponent. It's honestly the only way I can beat old school Drukhari. They hit a lot harder, they play the mission a lot better, and they're a lot faster. So it's my list but better, unfortunately, so I have to figure out how to beat them based on the player and the pilot. Anmech, I'm also very uncomfortable against all the builds, the infantry horde, the vehicle spam. They're very hard to get to. They crush me in shooting, they crush me in combat. So this is where I have to spot my opponent's mistake early enough and punish it. If I don't, I'm in a lot of trouble. So this is down to movement, angles, and who gets to engage first, to be honest. With player placed, I think I can mitigate some of their damage. And I don't know how many Lucius detachment armies are going to be with the Solar Flare. So we'll have to see with Anmech. And then the 2 new boogeymen, the Genes to the Cult and the Custodes. So Genes to the Cult, I'm more comfortable than Custodes, and I'll explain why. So Genes to the Cult have tons of tricks. They have all the mobility tricks. They can shut off Overwatch. They can make me fight last. They can shut off my heroics, which really, really hurts. The way it works is if they get one of these crossfire markers on one of your units, they can trigger these stratagems. So as long as they can't shoot me, they can't trigger these markers. So it's not the end of the world, but it's really, really hard to remember all their tricks. They can fall back and shoot, fall back and charge. They'll hit you surprisingly hard in combat, some random unit. So I've played a couple of games. They haven't gone well, but I've learned a lot. So I'm gonna try and figure this one out as I go at the tournament. But very, very uncomfortable just because of the amount of tricks. Now this army is dependent on the player. So if it's a very, very good player, I'm in a lot of trouble. If it's a less skilled player, I can maybe spot some mistakes and punish them hard enough to where they can't come back. But Custodes is the huge problem because this is a very easy army to pilot. It requires, like, I'm not saying it doesn't require any skill, but it's very straightforward. Every unit does what it says on the lid, and then with shutting off rerolls and transhuman, it cuts my damage by a quarter. Like, it's not being able to reroll my lightning claws, not being able to fish for 6s, and going into 4-up invulns that can bounce. It's really, really hard for my list to get damage through when I can't use the tools that my list was designed to use. So I'm very nervous about Custodes. I have the tools to beat them, but it's really down to how many 6s do I roll, how many 4-up invulns do they fail. And I don't feel very comfortable about that. But again, it's a very small footprint army. If I can remove those bikes, then they're all foot sloggers without advance and charge, and I've got the mobility upgrade advantage. So I guess we'll have to see as we go. Last time I was in this position was against Drukhari, where I lost 9 practice games in a row, and then I went to a major and I was able to beat 3 Drukhari players in a row. So I'm not saying that's gonna happen for Custodes, but like, I gotta trust myself a little bit and just
try and outplay the player and play the mission, and trust in the Cyberdogs to score me some oath points. But that's pretty much it. That's my expectations for LVO. I'm hoping to go 5-1. Would be super good for me. Obviously, I would love to go undefeated. I don't think that's gonna happen. But between player place terrain, I think I can make some of the worst, the harder matchups a little better for me. But yeah, we'll keep you updated. I'll be recording as much content as I can. Do I have any more slides? No. I'll bring up a cool photo of the intercessors because I'm really happy with them. But I'll keep you updated as we go through LVO. I'll be filming as many games as I can, and I hope that it goes well for the Wolves. I know I'm gonna have a blast. I'm super excited, but we'll see how it goes. In the meantime, please like and subscribe. Make sure you are subscribed and hit that notification button because we're gonna be pumping out tons of content, especially with the new missions. We're all super excited. And yeah, hope to see you at LVO. If you are gonna be there, please come say hi. And good luck with all your games.